Welcome to the Secure Connections podcast, brought to you by IoTSSA, the Internet of Things Security Services Association. I'm Brian Sherman, Content Director for IoTSSA and host of this weekly podcast. Today, my special guest is a well-known consultant in the channel. I'm sure you've heard of him or at least seen his face somewhere around. Pete Busam, founder and CEO of Equilibrium Consulting. Welcome to the Secure Connections podcast, Pete.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Great to be here with you and see you again,
Yeah, we never see enough of each other, in this virtual world we're living in. So.
I know.
So good. So, hey, as a first-time guest, we always like to dig a little deeper. You dig into your, I won't say drawers, but go back and learn a little history about your experience in the channel and the things that your company does as well. So everybody's pretty familiar with. Can you tell us briefly how you got your start in the industry and a little of your experiences moving through?
Well, way back when in the dark ages when we had, wooden ships and we were pulling oars and I was in the Navy, I came out with a very highly advanced technical background and came into the IT industry working for a defense contractor. And slowly but surely they wanted to move out of defense and into the private sector, so I got that task of moving them. So we grew up to about $65 million, and we sold to a very small company called General Dynamics.
Little company.
Yeah. And there was a couple aspects in there. There was an investment partner that brokered the deal, and they liked me, so then they put me into an ISP that they had some good fingers in, and I went and helped them grow their and get them bundled and sold off, and then I worked for a smaller MSP. And what I realized is I kept building these companies, and then I would leave and go build another company. So I said, gee, why don't you start doing this and becoming an arm for all these other technical companies that need the help and the nurturing and the, getting up in maturation in sales and marketing. So that's where we were founded and how we got there.
So you have entrepreneurial disease is what you're trying to tell me, and you cannot stop.
I do.
Very
unfortunately. Good. So now we get to help a lot of different people, and I don't keep leaving and changing my business cards. So it's been a steady thing for going on 13 years now. So
that's awesome, especially in this industry. So, so you kind of gave me the start to how you started Equilibrium, but can you tell us a little about what you do?
So we have a couple major components of our business. Obviously, we do some sales and marketing coaching of the executive side or the sales reps and help them drive better practices to drive consistent performance and repeatable performances and up the maturity ladder of sales and marketing. We also have another discrete practice where we do a lot of optimization inside of a PSA or a quoting tool. Most people know us for our QuoteWorks work, where we've been recognized as a top 10 world provider and probably top 1 or 2 in the IT space in the country for them. So we do a lot of optimization work in that area. But our biggest is our marketing as a service, and as you can see in my background, we've canned a whole thing where companies can come to us, flat price, just like an MSP. You get your price, you get your marketing, and it's just basically we are the outsourced extension of a marketing department that gets all your campaigns, events, PR, whatever aspect, social, website, all of those components are all included in a bundled price, and we push it out the door and do it. We probably hope over, 200 MSPs in the 12 to 13 years that we've been around now. So.
Well, great. And you recently have become an IoTSSA contributor. For those that aren't familiar, we look forward to tapping into your expertise from time to time, and look forward to you sharing information, tips on marketing, and also on the sales side too, because I know you're more than just a marketing guy. You've got some excellent expertise across the board. So
yeah, thanks.
It's
good to be here.
Good. And they can also, any of our listeners can go to the IoTSSA website and also, learn a little more about you and link back to your company too. So we're trying to make it easy so everybody knows how to reach you.
Good. Appreciate that.
So good. So hey, let's dig into the marketing aspect, because that's what we're here for. I know today. many MSPs seem really concerned right now about the ethics of marketing during the pandemic. This has been what do we do? How do we make sure that we're not offending people by promoting stuff that everybody has a different feel for what's going on with the COVID-19 situation right now? What's the best approach for promoting IT services right now?
So I want to make a blanket statement getting in there. I mean, the ethics haven't changed, right?
Right.
We have a more sincere approach that we want to do, something that embodies people and the sincerity that goes around it. But let's face it, every business still wants to be in business. They have to move forward, and you have to market. So even though you've got to be sincere, and maybe you're not as hard-lined as it, for every piece that you put out there or avenue that you pursue, you always have to ask for the business, right? And it wouldn't be a good sales or marketing piece if there wasn't an ask, right? But you can give at the same time, and I think that's the key. What are you giving to the community that you're serving that's going to make you stand out? These are the times where the hardline sell of saying, is your other MSP failing? Maybe they aren't. Maybe you just need some different services. Maybe there's some other thing. But what can you add that will help them or their staffs get it? And I've seen a lot of good stuff out there. People have put out tips, tricks, things of that nature. But there's some other things that you can do that are out there, and I think we'll probably talk a little bit about some of those things today as to as we lead into different parts of the segment. So don't be afraid to go out and do marketing. You can mix it up, do a little bit of soft sell, a little hard sell. It's good. So I tell people to kind of proceed, don't stop, accelerate. Now's the time to accelerate and just give a little bit more than maybe you were doing before. Give a little bit more that relates to the surrounding or what it is, right? And those are the just general rules of thumb, common sense type things.
It really just comes back down to finding the right message to deliver to your specific market, your specific clients. Because if you're trying to pitch right now and you have a lot of restaurant clients, that's going to be a different pitch than if you've got companies that are really, if not thriving, at least maintaining their business where it's at right now. Any particular thoughts on messaging or things that you've seen that have been successful right now?
Well, early on back in February and March, the whole thing was, how can we help? And you're past that now. But one of the big things now is the messaging really, and many of the companies are starting to focus on security, right? And IoTSSA is a perfect example of where a community is driving to help the providers out there in direction and content, et cetera, right? But, as we shifted from a brick and mortar to a home-based or a mobile type setup, we blew holes in security everywhere, right? To make this work. So now all these providers have to come back and they have to clean up the mess, right? And they have to do it in a very unassuming way because they created it. Even though it was customer driven and event driven, they created it. So now they have to go into a posture of what can they do? So, things that we recommend is don't try and sell security awareness, provide security awareness. Provide it. Don't just educate the people that you're dealing with. And those are some key elements that will get you a little bit more and a little bit further in your messaging and your voice. Right? So again, the give and the take, right? If you give a little bit, you're going to get something back.
So you're talking about educating them on some of the current issues that are going on in cybersecurity as well. Like we saw early on the COVID-19 phishing schemes and things. Some of those are still advancing, but there's new government programs coming out. There's new tax info coming out. All of these different schemes that any business owner could get caught up in because frankly, they sound too good to be true, and you're hoping that if there's pain behind the business owner, they're looking for salvation in some cases. So sharing this information is always important.
But the home user now is using devices that are not corporate assets, right? And not only are they not corporate assets, but they're connecting back to the corporate asset. Now their child is on doing homework or browsing the web and can get an infection on that machine. So what are the things, and bringing that kind of knowledge into the home worker, helping them understand their responsibility and their accountability to it. You know, we've got one firm that bought notebooks and told everybody, do not connect. They sent out little personal firewalls that do point-to-point connectivity in a VPN, so there's no issues. So, you know, so many different strategies, but there's a big awareness problem right now, and home users are the biggest vulnerable person. You know, the corporate network infrastructure is locked down, but the home user is not.
You think part of the issue too is, you know, live events obviously in most cases are canceled. There's not a lot of face-to-face meetings anymore. Businesses are pulling out all the stops when it comes to like digital marketing and things. Now we've had to switch the mindset. How does that affect, you know, the MSP being able to convey their message to business owners and then also to the end users, to your point from earlier?
Right. So this is where social comes in really big, is social advertising, social promotion. Social can provide a lot of different things. You can do questionnaires, right? So are you doing this? And give them a multiple choice. And at the same point, those are some good tactics that you can use not only to promote and spread awareness, but you can get data back for yourself to understand what that base looks like and what your message really needs to be. So it can be two-pronged and twofold. Is you're giving a little bit of information out, you can bring a little bit back in, and you can make better messaging and learn what the climate is as you're doing it. The face-to-face meetings, you know as well as I do, the channel is shut down without them, right? So we're all feeling the pain of not being able to see each other. And, you know, like I said, when we started here, it was great to see you again. You know, we see each other on a Zoom call each week, but we really don't get to like catch up like we would in the hallways or during sessions or a show floor or what have you. So, you know, what are companies to do? I mean, they like the question you asked, you know, they've got to go to more digital platform. They have to go back to basics. And I hate to be Captain Obvious, but everybody wants to jump out and say, I need to do pay-per-click, or I need to. No, you need to take a step back and look at your messaging on your website. Look at everything that you have that's customer-facing right now, right? Is your web, is your social, is your brand, you know, what is it conveying right now? Do you need to make a little shift and soften it up or change the picture on your cover pages to show the current environment? And, you know, instead of people in an office, maybe you need to show the commotion at home. I don't know. There's a lot of different things we can do, but that digital image of making yourself be easy to find through organic methods is a key to before you start spending money on things like PPC, right? If you don't have the basics there, then the PPC really doesn't integrate and give you the best opportunity.
Well, let's focus on the website for a minute, since you brought that up too. I've looked at a lot of MSP's website. There are some phenomenal ones, and then there are those that really haven't changed in 10 years. And to your point, is your website is now a digital calling card for any company. They're not coming to visit you typically anymore. They're going to go online, look at you, learn about you. What are some of the best tips, do you think, for right now during the pandemic that they can do quickly to freshen their sites?
Well, I think a couple things is, you know, if you can look at 4 or 5 discriminators, that's going to set you apart from your competitor. That's huge, right? And present that right away. Get it up front. Get it up on top, right? If people have to scroll down your page to find something out, they're gone, right? You've got a couple minutes or a couple seconds really to get them on that front page to engage with you. So, you know, don't do it. Blogs are syndicated. A lot of companies have websites and they're just getting feeds from magazines. That's great. But start writing some of your own unique content that can be indexed and put out there, and you can use it in a newsletter instead of the syndicated stuff. The syndicated stuff does not help you. It hurts you. right? It's great. It gives you feed and things of that nature, but you've got to get some original content in there. And you got to look at also what's the changing side of your services. Just like you said, they've been there for 10 years and they haven't changed. Well, does it really say who you are anymore? And does it really have the content that you want to get to the buying persona, right? Does it match with what you're putting on social? Are you showing your personality? But the big thing is get 4 or 5 key points that set you apart from your competitor. Learn about your competitors and get it right above the fold on that website so people can see it right away and say, all right, I think these guys get it. They're showing me something right up front.
How important is it to get cybersecurity in those points? I know it may differ. Yeah, I mean, it seems like one of the big differentiators right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many key elements, and the message. I think the message that people are using for cybersecurity is wrong right now. Everybody's saying you need cybersecurity, but they're not focused on the points of what needs focus. You know, security awareness certainly is something that is huge, right? And that's never going to go away. It's always been a concern back for as long as I've been around, is what's security. And every time a new device comes out, whether it's a USB device or something, it's going to be a threat, you know. But I think the bigger thing is a lot of companies are missing the boat as to things like IoT. You know, IoT is huge. There's not a business that you don't walk into that doesn't have IoT devices now. And it used to be, well, that's all manufacturing. It's not. There's smart devices in dentist office, and doctors, and law firms, and all of these things. You walk by them, and your phone all of a sudden pops up and says you can connect to this device, or that. You know, if it's telling you connect, that's a vulnerability right there, right? You walk by it, and it's popping up and telling me I can connect. So I think companies that look, there's money to be spent. Right, the businesses have some money to spend right now after they've gotten their PPP and some other grants and stuff like that. They've been able to reallocate and redo. But at the same rate, the focus needs to be away from the generic and get more specific. Get more specific and get into what their needs are, and that's where you're going to attract right now. If you're just going out in the general security, you've got a breach, you've got phishing, you're just noise with everybody else. But get into, hey, you know, we can help you with your IoT devices and how they are vulnerable and what they do to your data or could do to your data and how it could be breached. And now you've got a different discussion. And you know, that's huge.
So finding differentiators is key. How often do you think businesses should update their website? Because I see some that, my point is 10 years. I'd say typically I don't see a lot of changes from year to year in many of the websites.
You know, I say a facelift, you know, every 3 years minimum. It's like a PC refresh, right? You get a facelift on a website, but interim, you should, if you're running campaigns and you've got scrolling banners, you should put new banners up and some content or landing pages that reflect the things that you're doing. Those are important, right? Everything you do right now should be driving somebody to your website. And if your website doesn't have relevant content, they're going to go talk or look at somebody else's website that does. So having relevant content, banners, scrolling, words, graphics that relate to today are important. And that's something that a lot of them fail to do. Our content's still good. It says what our product is, but it's not current.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
And now that puts a lot of people behind the 8 ball because they can't go out. I mean, they can make phone calls still to try to generate new leads and things, but you're kind of behind the times if you can't get people to your site and get them interested in what you do.
Mm-hmm.
To that point too is, let's take a step looking at one of the other digital options, which is social media. And I can't tell you enough times that I see that many companies have social media. But when you go and search it, especially in the channel, and I'm not picking out any particular MSPs, but I would say 75% of the MSPs, I go look at their Twitter, for example, you will see that they had a flurry of activity 3 years ago, and then 2 years ago they posted 2 things within a month, and then they haven't posted anything this year. It's when they have something, they'll go throw it on there, but there's no consistency to it. And the same thing with Facebook and even in LinkedIn. LinkedIn, they may be a little more positioned, but how important is it for MSPs to be actively engaging in social media today, and what tools are available to help them do that if they don't have the time or the will to do it?
Right. So, there's plenty of tools out there. One of our favorites is Hootsuite, because most MSPs have 3 services: LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter.
Right.
And Hootsuite will let you manage all 3 of them and do scheduled posts from one dashboard there. And then you can always get analytics if you buy up in the program, right? Get started and move upstream. But the key is deliberate and consistency, right? And like you said, they've got something and they had a flurry of posts and they disappeared. When you market, if you don't market consistently and then you disappear and then you come back, people wonder where you are and what your real presence. Kind of like a trade show. If you went to a local trade show forever and then they did it and you didn't show up because you didn't feel like you were getting anything out of it, where did they go? Are they out of business? Are they, the silly questions come out in the silly season kind of things. But you have to be very deliberate and consistent when you're marketing your firm, and that goes across all outlets. But social media should also be representative of following a consistent pattern of, does your profile picture and cover pages look and relate to your website? Do they look the same all the way? So a lot of times we look at it and there's different cover pages on each one, and we're like, who are you? And why do you have a different profile picture instead of your logo? And so there's no consistency in them.
Right.
And so it's not just posting, it's about the whole digital reputation type thing, to make yourself look and feel the same no matter where you are. Your business cards, your social media, your website, your email campaigns, your signatures in your email, all of those things. You have the opportunity to build your brand, and if you don't take advantage of that consistency and deliberate intent, then you miss a lot, right? Because your brand recognition is huge. That's all you have, really.
Is there a rule of thumb on how many social media posts companies should make? I mean, I've seen some that'll daily, some literally hourly, a little too much in my consideration, but and then others that try to post one thing a week. I don't know if there's a great recipe out there.
Right. We found that the best engagement runs at about 2 posts per week per outlet.
Okay.
So if that gets you, if you've got engagement, you've got followers, they're coming back, it's there. Typically something that leads back to your website, whether it's a service advertisement or a blog, or, try and put things in your website that are going to pull people back again, that whole thing. But typically 2 posts are a good thing. One is a little bit light and every day is a little much, but like right now we're posting every day because we've got that tour going on, right? So yeah. That's important because we're saying which city we're in this week or this day or what have you, so people know. But other than that, we're usually at about a two posts per week for ourselves and our customers or anybody.
Right. Then that might vary to your point of if you have various activities going on, you can adjust it up or down depending on what's needed. What other marketing activities are you finding are most beneficial to MSPs right now?
Well, I think organic SEO is a big benefit in stepping back and looking at your website, looking at the content, the age of the content, like you were saying, and freshening it up. Right now is a great time to do that, because as you come on to the back end of this and as we come out of this sheltered life that we're all leading right now, and we come out of it, you will get back face to face. And as your business card drops and people start talking again, your website is going to be critical. It is critical now. So take the time now to refresh it, look at it, get it optimized with organic SEO. And then you can move on to other things like paid SEO. and things of that nature. But now's a great time to do it and get yourself set for that component. So that's the one thing. Don't be afraid of social. Certainly on Facebook, show your personality, show your company culture. LinkedIn, be more professional and up, but show the culture of the company. People relate to companies. People buy from people they know, and people buy from people they like. So if you show your culture and your personality through social media, celebrate a birthday, something's going on that's in the business that's people related, those posts tend to drive a lot more engagement because people relate to people, right? So show who you are. Don't be afraid to show who you are and post those things frequently. Those are good things. If you're doing something in the community, you were talking about volunteerism earlier, and some people don't like to post their volunteers, but some of it is good for business, showing that the business is volunteering or doing something good in the community, or a community day that you're all participating in. Those are just awesome things that will bubble up, and the people that you're driving to see that, they recognize that, they relate to it, and if that's part of their core values, then they find a better synergy. So finding those ways now to do those things through social is going to be very important.
The other aspect too in the company is finding the right person that A, wants to, and B, has the skills to do social. It's not hard, but at the same point, you have to have a good message and understand the customers, clients, and prospects as well, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be the management team of an MSP. I've seen some that have the wife or even the husband of the MSP owner that does the social media. They don't work for the company normally, but they're in tune with what's happening and they know all of the people. So there are other options. I guess my point is it doesn't have to all fall to the owner.
No, but a lot of times the owner, knows what he or she likes, and they don't like to let it go. It's a nervous thing for them as they go and mature in their model of divesting themselves.
That is the hardest part, though, is to let go and put people in charge of things. But we learn that in other aspects of the business. This is just one that's very outward facing, so you have to be comfortable in that too. Yeah,
and look, sometimes the young creative person on your staff has some great ideas, and if you look at their social media page, they've got tons of followers or get a lot of engagement. So, sometimes it's good to get those people involved. The other thing that we do and we think is really important is employee engagement. And you can't tell your employees they have to go out and engage on your posts. But we find that, and a lot of people may remember the old Breck commercial, right? And she tells two people and they tell two people, and then before long the screen is full of people, right? Breck bottles. But if the employees share or like, it will then show up in other feeds. And you never know who you've marketed to in the past that could see it in somebody else's feed, by social sharing and social separation. So we encourage employees to get involved and share and like and do those components, because that shows also that they're involved in the company and that the company's more than one person or just a post, right? Shows the culture of an engagement.
See that a lot with, when you have new hires or the company's expanding, everybody's very quick to share those, but you try to encourage them to share more things from the company. Maybe they're not comfortable sharing every single post that the business does, but there's times where there's thought leadership or, milestones within the companies. Definitely, it's a value. You like to work for companies that are doing positive things. So encourage that. Let's talk now. We talked a lot about different components, but I think the one thing that we haven't really hit on is the marketing strategies, because there's a lot of moving parts, as we know, even in the digital world. Is building that foundation now is probably extremely important. I think you'd mentioned earlier of the SEO and your social media and putting all of those things in place. But let's talk about, how much time and effort should MSPs be putting into their marketing plans right now?
I love this side of the discussion. Dave Sobel did a great little podcast a while ago, and his conclusion was make a plan. Right? Don't slingshot everything. Don't go out and hire a marketing company, without making a plan with them that you can execute on. Right? Whatever that strategy is. Get down into your planning so you can decide on budgets, you can decide on resources, you can understand metrics and how to measure it. And that certainly lends itself to the maturity of the organization at that point. Having a strategy and having a plan to execute upon to see what are our goals. What is the goal for social? What is the goal for website? What is the goal for email marketing? What is the goal for a webinar? And having all those aspects mapped out with a strategic direction allows you to really look at everything from a high level and say, okay, if these things fall into place and I hit these strides, I should be able to derive some net new business to this extent, right? And no marketing company should ever guarantee that they're going to drive leads unless, not even the folks that are doing the demand generation, because you can't guarantee it. Market conditions or phone or where people are, it's too hard to do that. But you can look at other metrics that show engagement. And so as you look at that strategic plan, every one of those components of marketing should have a metric that you start. And, whether it's a monthly, we recommend quarterly goals because monthly there's too many changes monthly and things. But we recommend looking at a quarterly goal and a quarterly theme that you can run with and then measure it along the way and adjust and pivot as you move along. Otherwise you're just throwing some spaghetti up on the roof and running around with the pan trying to catch it as it falls down, right? And then you don't execute well and you become frustrated and marketing stops and you get a bad taste in your mouth for marketing and I'm not going to do it. And then 3 months later you're saying, I got to do marketing, right? So do a plan. You got to start with a plan. If you don't start with a plan, then you're probably not going to have success.
So that plan should obviously have goals on what they want to do for each of these various platforms that they're utilizing.
Correct. Yes.
So for the website, you should have goals. For your social media, goals.
Goals, yeah.
Okay.
And they may be how much web traffic or how many net new visitors you bought or how many new likes you got, or we averaged 15 likes per post or really you can pick a bunch of different ones, and there's some that are a must and there's other ones that are kind of good leading indicators on where your program is going.
Right.
So.
And then obviously beyond the goals of how to execute or the various stages of what to do to get to that point, whether it's 2 weekly posts for social media or whatever. But
right. So there's the tactical side.
Yep.
Right. The strategic side, then it moves into the tactical and the execution to deliver out.
And making sure quarterly that they're reviewing those to see how well they did too. I think that's where I won't just say MSPs, but many companies fall down on. Did we evaluate it? Are we meeting those? Did we just create a plan and walk away from it and hope that somebody executed it? That's the hardest part. What about resources? So in the channel, there's a lot of MSPs will be the first to admit they're IT geeks first. They love to play in the technology. When it comes to some of the things on the business side, especially marketing, maybe not an interest area for them or an expertise. How do they get started? Where can they find somebody to fill this role?
Well, there's certainly, methods that you can bring in an assistant or somebody that can do it. And a lot of them will do somebody that's on the overhead side or the staff side, not the deliverable side. And they'll go out and they'll dip their toes in it. And they may see some success and get some excitement, but it's not enough to move the chains per se as they need to, right? That's where they can go out and hire a full-time person inside, or they can come to a firm like ours where we're staffed with content writers, web designers, social media people, graphic artists, whatever it is, right? The need is there, and they can get it for a neatly bundled type setup, just like their MSP plans are. So it is resource driven. It is monetary driven. People say, how much money should I spend on marketing? I always love that question.
Yeah.
Well, when you're more mature and you're upstream and all that, 2% of your profitability can be a number. But when you're $1 million company, 2% is nothing. You can't get bubble gum.
Right.
So it's irrelevant. So your early days are going to definitely be much more expensive as far as a drain of a dollar resource, but the gain on the outside should be brand and growth, right? So you have to kind of look at it. The other thing that we always say is expectations. And expectations are one of the most critical components for any owner to understand. When they started their business, they're very technically competent and geek, like you said, right? And they admit it. They understand that it should take so long to load Windows or put in a hard drive or do a certain setup of a router or switch or whatever the device might be. They understand that. They can put a time frame around it, a process to it, and all that. And look, marketing is a process. And understanding that it is a process and that it has certain things that you need to do and metrics and reportable, timelines are different. You can't necessarily say, if I do this, I'm going to get this immediately, right? So having the right expectations and turning it into a process, but it all starts with that strategic plan. Yeah. You get that plan, and then you can boil it down, and don't be afraid of it. Just work with somebody, whether it's in-house or out, that you can trust that will work with you on that strategic plan first before they just say, let's do this. There's a lot of marketing companies out there that do a lot of shotgun approach because they don't have a plan. Let's see what sticks. And it makes it very hard for other companies then to gain traction, just like an MSP. They had a bad experience with another, so it's hard for them to close the deal, right? So
it is. I think the hardest thing is for those that haven't done any marketing to get started. And I know, there's even, if you've got local colleges around, there may be an incubator available to at least get some free help to get them started. Mm-hmm. Even if it's not, to the level of what you can provide, at least get them started with having, develop a plan, find somebody that can help with social media, at least put the pieces in place and get started. And then as they're more successful, they can bring in, the next level marketing teams as well.
We always tell everybody before they start marketing a couple items. Who are you selling to? What's your buying persona? Don't just say their number of users and this, who are you selling to, right? Because that's going to help you decide what your messaging is and how to talk the language to that market or to that buying persona, right? So that's one. Second thing is your playbook on what your product is or isn't, right? This is an internal document that helps you scale, but a lot of times people will just go out and say, we're an MSP. Okay, owner, go talk to your staff and ask each person in a room privately what your MSP service is. And if you have 5 people on staff, I guarantee you get 5 different answers because they all have a different perception of their frame of reference of where they sit in that stack to service that stack. And so there's internal marketing. So you have to develop in writing the pros and cons, discriminators of your product and document it so people understand it and then teach your people, right? Because your technical staff are great salespeople for you to get uplift and attach. So they should know what your products really are. And as you bring in a salesperson, it makes it much easier if you've documented it. You're great at documenting your tech. Document your product or service from a sales perspective. Put it together in a little, company sensitive area that you can hand to somebody when they onboard and say, here's who we are. Here's what our products or services are. Here's what they're not. And then you get everybody on the same train saying the same thing. And that's where organizations accelerate.
Excellent.
Right? But those are some good starting points right there.
Yeah. No, I think those are some great topics too. And I want to dig into, there's about 4 or 5 things we touched on today. that I think we could develop into individual discussions too, dig deeper to help the IOTSA audience. So great. Unfortunately, we could talk all day. I could sit on here for 2 hours with you, obviously, Pete. But before we sign off today, any final thoughts to share with our audience?
Yeah, don't be afraid to market. It's a trial and error. It's not something, there's no magic sauce. Everybody always says, well, what's the magic thing that we've got to do? Experiment. Be creative. People like things that are creative, so we always say be consistent, be deliberate, and be seen and be heard. And if you think about those 4 elements, be seen, be heard, how can you do that? Social, all these other things that we've discussed today. So get out there, do it, try it a little bit, don't be afraid. Be creative, use graphics. Pictures tell a lot of words, show your personality. It's how you're going to network right now, right? It'll change in 3 or 4 months, and we'll go back to yet another pivot in how we get back to whatever the next, I hate the words, the new norm, but we're gonna see a lot of pivoting over the next 12 to 16 months, you know, as we as a nation or world move through this pandemic and changes economically, right? So just continue to be flexible, set realistic expectations. And if you do those kind of things, I think you can set yourself up for some great success.
Fantastic. Excellent advice. Thank you. On behalf of the IOTSA team, I would definitely like to thank Pete Busam of Equilibrium Consulting for joining me on the Secure Connections podcast today. Please stop back next Wednesday for another new episode, and be sure to check out all of our channel cybersecurity resources at IOTSSA.com. Thank you again, and have a safe and secure day.
Thank you.